Hello, and welcome back to One Trek Mind with me, Raptor.
And me, Michael.
And today we're going to be giving our thoughts about the whole of Season 1 of Starfleet Academy. But before we get into that, I just want to say a quick little thing at the start of this. Starfleet Academy's release and the discourse around it, the response online, the response we've seen in our comment section, it's been pretty exhausting, I have to say. Just the sheer weight of negativity surrounding this show. And frankly, it's preposterous. You know, this show isn't perfect, and we're going to get into that. But the show isn't bad because it has a gay Klingon character. The show isn't bad because the women in it don't all look like Seven of Nine and have her figure. The show isn't bad because it's clearly not aimed at older audiences, it's aimed at a different type of audience. Frankly, this is what the Star Trek fandom does with every new show. When Next Generation came out, it can't be Star Trek because it hasn't got Captain Kirk in it. When DS9 came out, it can't be Star Trek because it's set on a space station or a starship. When Lower Decks came out, it can't be Star Trek because it's an animated comedy parody. I have seen less consistent patterns on a tea towel. I just want to make it clear that this is going to be a review based on more than what is that nonsense. And I really hate the way that nonsense, because there is stuff to criticize, genuine stuff to criticize, but all of the other nonsense and rubbish kind of covers up all of that, and it just really bugs me. So I just wanted to get that off my chest at the beginning.
No, I mean, I 100% agree. Again, I feel like it is a constant thing with every new iteration of Star Trek, no matter which show you're talking about, going all the way back to Next Gen. There has always been a large portion of the fan base for Star Trek that is just criticizing it for the sake of criticizing it. Because it's different, because it is too liberal, too woke, whatever. And every single time, it's bullshit. Again, like, if you have a valid criticism for the show, we'd love to hear it. If you just don't like it because a Klingon character is gay, or because there's a woman in it that isn't like super ridiculously skinny, then frankly, I don't care about your opinion. It doesn't matter. You're letting your own personal biases shape your opinions on a show that you probably haven't even watched or never gave a real fair shot. So, again, with that out of the way, though, let's get into our actual thoughts about the show.
So, I'll start by saying something very broadly before we get into something more positive. There were 3 things I wanted the show to do. Of those 3 things, I feel the show has failed to do 2 of them and has half succeeded at 1 of them. And this will lead me into my first positive point. This show actually has characters and bothers to spend time introducing us to the characters. Unlike Discovery, where we never knew who the hell any of the people were on the bridge other than Burnham and Saru, we actually know all of the cast, and we know about them as people, and what they're interested in, and what their sort of conflicts are, and what pressures are on them.
Yeah. That's something I've really enjoyed about this show is, again, the characters specifically. I know everyone's name. I know everyone's at least sort of backstory. I know their motivations. And I think that is mostly because this show does kind of harken back to a more episodic structure, which allows you to spend an entire episode with this character and then the next episode with that character. And you kind of get to bounce around with these characters and learn more about them, which is definitely a major positive for the show because Picard did not do that. There are, specifically in its first 2 seasons, there are a lot of new characters introduced in that show that I don't remember the names of. I don't know what they're interested in, what they're about. I know that their backstories were mentioned, but I can't remember them because we never really spent a lot of time with them. Same thing with Discovery. Not the same with Strange New Worlds. Strange New Worlds did, again, go for the episodic structure and lets you kind of bounce around with the characters characters and get to know some of them. To be fair, though, that show definitely focuses more on the original TOS cast than it does some of the newer characters. Like Ortega still hasn't gotten a whole lot to do on the show. She's had pretty much just one episode that was really devoted to her. But you've had plenty with Uhura, plenty with Spock, and so on and so forth. But again, they still have given time to characters like Una and La'an, who are relatively new characters, because again, it's not like you really got to know Una very well in TOS. So yeah, I think that show kind of broke the mold a little bit, and this one follows suit by allowing you to really get to know the characters. Lower Decks was kind of the same, where again, you had plenty of episodes to get to know the main 4 cast members, which turns into 5 by the final 2 seasons. And I do think, again, that is a major plus to this show. Again, by the end of it, I know who these people are, at least a baseline for who these people are, and where they end up going from here. I can genuinely say I'm interested. Like, I want to see where these characters end up going in their careers in Starfleet and everything. I'm very curious what Sam ends up doing as both an emissary to her people and going down an operations / engineer route. I want to see where Darum goes, where he's now, left behind this potential royalty status with his people in order to stay with Starfleet and potentially become a pilot or maybe something else. And I especially want to know what's going on with Caleb. Like, he still hasn't picked a division or like a path for himself, but he has finally come to accept Starfleet as his home and that he has friends here and a purpose here. So where are these characters all going to go? And I'm genuinely curious. I want to see what happens.
And I praise the show as well for being, even though it is set at Starfleet Academy, the adult characters feel like they've been given time as well to be characters.
True.
And not just sort of background figures. Like we've learned a lot about Age. We've learned about her relationship with the head of the War College. We've obviously learned a bit about the Doctor. We've learned about Reno, and Reno's had more to do than she ever had to do in Discovery. So I praise the show for taking the time to do that. Just as a general positive, while I have some issues which I'll talk about in a bit, I like the fact that Star Trek is embracing a different idea. Like Lower Decks and Prodigy, this is Star Trek trying to do something a little bit different. Let's have a show set entirely at the Academy. Let's have a show primarily about the young cadets. Let's make it very clearly aimed at a younger teenage, young adult audience. I don't think anyone would disagree that this is clearly not aimed at the traditional Star Trek fan base.
Yeah, no, I definitely think this is their attempt to kind of pull in a new demographic for the show, which I think is important. The show is, the franchise is 60 years old at this point. So your original fans are, in their 80s at this point. Your legacy Trek fans are in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. So you kind of need to bring in another round of new audience members. You kind of have to if you want to have the show have this franchise have any kind of longevity. So I don't think that's a bad idea.
I give them some credit for trying something new. I don't think they're 100% successful with it, but the effort has clearly been made. I mean, I also think that the show clearly has a lot of money behind it and puts that on screen. The Atrium, I was thinking about this last night while I was trying to doze off. The Atrium is probably one of the most unique set spaces we've seen in Star Trek. The only other thing I could think of that I would say is also kind of unique to Star Trek is maybe Deep Space Nine's Promenade.
Yeah, although if I recall, I could be entirely wrong on this. Please call me out in the comments if I am. But I do believe the Atrium is a redressed set from Discovery. I'm almost confident that one of the large sets from Starfleet headquarters on that space station has been redressed to be this atrium. Again, I could
maybe
be wrong, but I am almost sure about that. And they've made it look entirely different to what it looked like there, so I don't think that's a bad thing. Again, it's a good reallocation of resources, if that is in fact true. But again, I just like the look of the atrium. Again, one of the things about Star Trek that I have always liked, sometimes less so in certain shows than in others, is that I want to be there. It's not like a lot of other sci-fis where I'm like, wow, that was an exciting story, but wow, I'm glad I don't live in that universe because that looks awful.
Yeah, looking at you, Warhammer.
Yeah. Star Trek has always been a universe where I'm like, man, I wish I lived there. I wish I actually existed in that universe to experience this kind of architecture and these scientific resources and this open, diverse thinking amongst many of the Federation species and everything. It makes you feel invited, as if you would definitely want to be there. And the atrium is one of those sets where I'm like, that looks great. Like, I would love if I went to school at a place that looked like this. I'd be happy to be walking through the atrium or hanging out there during my lunch or something.
And I suppose it's always nice to see a show that's provided with all the stuff that they need. You know, some of the sets are obviously redresses of Strange New World sets, but they still look fantastic. And I think it's modern Star Trek as a whole finally feels like it looks as good as it should have always looked.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Again, people can make the argument that even if Voyager and Next Gen and DS9 had the same budgets as they do now, they wouldn't look that much different, but I, to this day, disagree. I think 100% it wouldn't look the way it does now. Like, I think they probably still would have gone for the carpet and they still would have gone for like specific looks, but it definitely 100% would have looked better if they had bigger budgets like they do now. Again, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think there is a trade-off. Because again, you have all those Legacy Trek series where, yeah, they had smaller budgets and had to kind of work with what they got. But that also meant that they got 20 to 25 episodes a season. Whereas now, we finally do have the budgets to make these sets and locations and visual effects look as good as they possibly can, except for the whales. Those did not look good in episode 2.
The CGI whales did not look good.
But we only get 10 episodes now. Sometimes in the case of Discovery, we get, 13, 15 episodes, but that's dwindling faster and faster as streaming becomes more, what's the word I'm looking for?
Prevalent?
More structured. When it comes to a streaming show, nowadays, you get 10 episodes or you get 8. That is the commonality. If you are a streaming show that has a decent sized budget, you get 8 or 10 episodes. And if you are wrapping your show up, you probably only get 6. And again, I don't blame Star Trek for that. I don't blame Starfleet Academy for that. I kind of just blame the overall, overlords of streaming services nowadays for that. Because I do think, this will be my first criticism for this first season, is that this show would have done better if it was 15 episodes long. If they had just had more time to tell some more stories in this first season, I think it absolutely would have been better. Having to kind of condense it into 10 episodes, while not being bad, like again, I still enjoyed the time we got, it would have, I think, been better if we had more.
I agree, because it feels like there's been a couple of quite big time jumps in order to condense an entire year into 10 episodes. And to be fair, it's not even 10 episodes, because the first 2 episodes are basically the first couple of days, and the last 2 episodes are basically the last couple of days. So really, it's 6 episodes to do a year of Starfleet Academy's education. It's just a bit too compressed, and that actually probably results in one of my major criticisms and one of the things the show has failed to do, which is I wanted this to feel like a school, a professional higher education establishment for what is an incredibly dangerous, difficult, challenging career path. You're literally serving in space in Starfleet. Probably a very, very, very difficult career path to go down.
And again, as I mentioned in our conversation before this video, again, there's no real currency in the Federation. So to do this career path, it is because you want to.
You've chosen.
It is because you have chosen for your life's path to go down whichever of the three major sections of Starfleet you want to go down, knowing that it is going to be dangerous, knowing that it is going to potentially be very stressful, that it is going to take up a lot of your life and potentially take away romantic opportunities and other opportunities within your life. You know you're making a sort of sacrifice to take on this career. So I do think there is a level of professionalism and
maturity.
Yes, and maturity that you need to have to be here. And I hate to say it, it makes me feel like an old person, but I didn't really see that in this season. No. It feels like a regular college,
yes,
modern day.
I feel that they can't decide what they want this place to be. Sometimes it feels like a sort of traditional police or army academy, and then sometimes it feels like the sort of archetypal cliche American high school. The place, it just creates a dissonance with what this is supposed to be representing. I think episode 3 is obviously the peak of this, with this absolutely preposterous
bad episode. Sorry, it's a bad episode.
Preposterous pranking that goes on between the individuals that are here. But there are lots of other elements to this as we go through. I mean, the sheer number of times that the cadets are put into unsafe situations by the teachers, the people that are there to safeguard their health and safety. I don't know if anyone is aware, me being me having gone through teacher training, it does not matter how old the people are at your education establishment. If you're a university, if you're a college, if you're a high school, whatever. Anyone who is attending your place of education, you as a teacher have the safeguarding responsibility to look out for their well-being, both their physical well-being and their mental well-being.
I think they do a good job with the mental well-being aspect of it. There are multiple episodes where you see the teachers take the mental health of their cadets very seriously. There's a little moment in episode 6 when they're on this training mission in deep space on the Miyazaki. There's a cadet on the bridge who is clearly hyperventilating. She's freaking out because she sees that there is a dead body of one of the other, members of Starfleet who has just been jettisoned into space. And Thok takes no hesitation. She immediately points at her and says, take her to sickbay right now. She is clearly not okay. She is not capable of helping in this situation. She needs to go to sickbay and be taken care of. And I really like that little bit. And I also like the preceding episode in episode 8, where they again really take their mental health seriously. They're like, our cadets are not doing well after this Miyazaki incident. They need to be given a kind of special form of therapy because we've already sent them to regular therapy and it's not working for them, but we need them to overcome this. So they really take it seriously, they take a different approach, and they help them through it. And I think that is really good.
Yeah, especially, just before we move on, especially because these days, certain, shall we say, political groups,
right wing,
use mental health as a battering stick. This claim that mental health and mental health problems aren't the same as physical health problems and aren't as important and blah blah blah. I think it's really important that a show like Star Trek makes a point of saying, actually, people's mental health, dealing with trauma, PTSD, all these other aspects, it is actually important.
I mean, it can literally lead to your death if you do not deal with these things, either through suicide or other physical, maladies that you can get from not dealing with extreme stress. So yes, it is in fact very important. And I would like to reiterate, the people that say that that is not important, it's all made up in your head and you can just choose to get over it, you clearly have never gone through a mental health situation where it feels completely helpless, and it really shows. It is very serious and it needs to be addressed, and I'm really glad this show takes its time to address those issues. That again is a major positive to this show, I think.
It is definitely a positive. But multiple times, these adults have put the students in dangerous situations when it didn't need to happen. In episode 1, they haven't even arrived at the school at San Francisco, and they stop in the middle of a dangerous area
near the Badlands
to apparently do a lesson. School hasn't even started, and you're stopping in the middle of nowhere without informing Starfleet. You're supposed to be going to San Francisco to start the year. You stop halfway on the route, you don't inform anybody, and immediately the ship ends up being attacked. The circumstances of that, again, is another part of this, which I'll go into in a second. Then we have the whole incident about the Miyazaki, making these cadets do a dangerous away mission with complete lack of control over the situation because you're not doing it in the holodeck, and it results in the death of a cadet. It results in the death of an officer. The students have also been put in harm's way because of the complete lack of security that this place seems to have. Caleb's able to hack through the communication system, which results in the incident in episode 1, which puts everyone at risk. Caleb's able to hack onto the bridge, probably the one place you don't want anybody who's not authorized to be there on there. The place where, you can control the warp engines and the phasers and the photon torpedoes, but he's able to hack into the place seemingly easy as anything.
They're able to hack into a shuttle and take it away while they're at warp.
And not be detected when it happens. People are able to randomly beam into the academy and kidnap 2 students without them being without it being known about. War College students are able to hack into one of the more dangerous pieces of technology that's ever been invented, a piece of technology that we have seen splinch people and turn people into Tuvix and God knows whatever else. But they're able to use it to beam people wherever they like, resulting in one cadet falling down a flight of stairs, which could have resulted in serious proper injury.
We did see, I will give them the credit on that one. They did make it clear that the cadets were not able to hack into that system. They got help from their chancellor. But that's almost worse because, again, you have your head of staff agreeing to help these students prank another group of students in the same organization. There is the War College and there is the Starfleet College. They're both technically separate entities, but they are all still unified under one Starfleet banners. So to have them pitted against each other by the chancellors, that is not okay. Again, I really hate that 3rd episode. I do not like that 3rd episode.
Like I say, it just puts these students in harm's way, both physically and mentally, it's just not what an education establishment should do. And then on top of that, you have the seeming complete inadequacy of the people in charge to discipline these individuals in anything like the way you would expect. Like if we think back to,
the TNG episode with
First Duty, was it? First Duty with Nova Squad?
I think so.
Nick Locano is expelled, rightly so. But all the other cadets that were part of this whole thing, including Wesley, were kept back a year. They had the entire year's credits cancelled. They had to retake an entire year of the academy. And quite rightly so, I think.
No, I mean, they were responsible for the death of another cadet. Yeah. They tried to conceal it from everyone else under Nick Locarno's
duress.
His duress.
Pressure.
And again, Picard makes a very good warranted speech to Wesley at one point during the episode that, again, a Starfleet officer's first duty is to the truth, whether that be medical truth, scientific truth, philosophical truth, whatever it might be, it is to the truth. And what you are doing right now is wrong.
Yeah,
and you need to be punished for it.
And they get punished for it, quite rightly so, in a way that I think is fair to what has happened. But in Academy, the War College cadets that hacked into the system because the Chancellor allowed it and then could have committed a serious injuries to these cadets, they get detention.
Or again, they get menial labor service hours is the common punishment that we get throughout the series. Is like, you get 100 hours of menial labor, and it's like, to me, it's not enough. I'm like, that doesn't teach anyone anything. That just says, hey, if you do something really fucked up and wrong, you just have to put in a little extra work and then it's fine. And it does get to a point where you're like, come on, dude. Like, they are not behaving like a Starfleet cadet should. No. They're supposed to be the best of the best. They're supposed to be professional, mature, and they're acting like little children.
Having gone through rigorous psychological and mental testing, if we are to assume that in the 32nd century they have a similar testing regimen to the how we see in TNG.
Again, we know they do, because in episode 2, the Beta Z president says so. He's like, I heard that there's a rigorous psychological test that they have to go through, an exam they have to pass, a huge, extensive background check on them. Are we still doing that? And they said yes. But again, Caleb was given an exemption from that because he was given the deal between jail or Starfleet, and he passed the exam in like the 98th percentile or whatever.
Although I call bullshit on him doing the psych test in the shuttle on the way. And this actually brings me to another aspect of this. I don't feel like it feels like a school. Is this relationship between Ake and Caleb? I understand why it's there, and I think it's important for the episodes to have that there.
It's a good relationship, I will say. I do like the emotional resonance of the relationship between the two.
But a number of times it has veered on a conflict of interest. She allows him to get away with quite she gives him a lot of leeway, and I can understand that as a fellow teacher. You don't want to always be punishing your students. You do want to see them succeed. So you do give those students that maybe find it a little harder, but you know that they're capable of doing better. You do give them a little bit of leeway. But at some point, that becomes a conflict of interest. And I think for Ake and Caleb's relationship, it feels like it's starting to become favoritism.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Again, I could see an argument saying, no, there's extenuating circumstances. She still does punish him, even if it is just menial labor in the moments he does screw up. I can see an argument being made that it's not crossing the line, but in my personal opinion, it is crossing the line a couple times. And again, I don't hate it. I 100% understand where she's coming from. I really like the little bit where Thok tells her, like, he needs his ass kicked because he's an arrogant little asshole. And Ake says he's been getting his ass kicked his whole life. Like, he's lived in the gutter his entire life. More of that is not going to improve him. I need to show him that I believe in him. So again, I get it. Like, I do genuinely get it, where she's coming from and why she's trying to teach in this way. But there are moments where I'm like, dude, he is pushing it to the absolute limit, where he should probably rightfully, if not be expelled, at least have the same punishment that Wesley and the other cadets had, where he gets held back a year, because he is really pushing it sometimes.
I want to talk more about Caleb in a bit. Just want to take a little time to talk about some other positive things. since we've been talking quite negative for a while. I think there are a few standout characters in this show.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Starting, I think, with Jaden. I think out of all of the characters in the show, I think he for me is probably the one I would say I'm most rooting for.
Agreed. I think he's very professional. He's very mature, for lack of a better word. I like that he kind of breaks the norm of typical Klingons while still feeling Klingon to me. Again, I don't agree with the arguments that, oh, he doesn't feel Klingon at all. Because again, I point to that 7th episode wherein he thinks his friend has been kidnapped and he picks up like a boulder the size of half of his body and is ready to attack the people that took him.
I mean, this idea that a Klingon can't be a doctor, I'm sorry, but to quote Tendi, who do you think built the starships? There are other types of Klingon. We have even seen other types of Klingon. We've seen Klingon lawyers. We've seen Klingon doctors before. So, and engineers, in fact. B'Elanna Torres. She might be half Klingon, but I still think it counts. So the idea that you can't have a Klingon doctor is just preposterous.
I mean, I really agree. I think in terms of character, he's a breath of fresh air. He's interesting and unique. He sees the joy in life and the beauty in life around him because that's what his mother taught him. He wants to use his warrior spirit, basically, to heal people and to be a cause of good. Again, I really like that he's gay and that he does have a boyfriend in the show. Again, there's a lot of people I've seen who say, you know, this is, again, just the woke propaganda bullshit. But I'm like, again, are you telling me that no Klingon out of the billions of Klingons that exist, none of them can be gay? None of them. They're all straight. They're all warriors. They all value honor above all else. That's just stupid. Like, there has to be some level of individuality in an entire species of people, especially one that is so well established in Star Trek. Like, it makes perfect sense to me that he is gay, that he is a doctor, that he wants to wear a scant. Like, I don't understand the huge criticisms being thrown at Jaden. I think he is, by far, for me, my favorite character of the cadets, for sure.
Actually, someone pointed out a good... I saw it in a comment section on Facebook, that actually what he's wearing is closer to a kilt, like those worn in Scotland, than the scant, because the scant is a one-piece thing, whereas he still has the top, but he just the breast part, for want of another term, is a separate bit entirely. So actually, it's more like a kilt. And if you go and insult a Scottish person's kilt, you're likely to get your head taken off your shoulders. So I think it suits. Frankly, this whole idea that we can't have an openly gay, obviously gay Klingon. This is not the 1960s anymore. You cannot just have a black person at the back of the bridge who gets no voice lines and gets no episodes and gets nothing important to do and claim that it's adequate representation. Maybe you could have gotten away with that back in the 60s. I mean, frankly, I would argue, I think
they kind of did back in the 60s because Uhura and Sulu didn't really get a whole lot to do in TOS.
And I think calling that representation is borderline at the best of times. But times have moved on. It's no longer sufficient enough to just have these characters in the background. And frankly, there's no reason why they should be in the background. If you're going to sit there and claim, as many of these Trekkies do, that Deep Space Nine is actually the best Star Trek out of all of them, well, you've got a black commanding officer and you've got a allegory for transgender people who also happens to have a lesbian kiss on screen. So if you're going to say DS9 is the best Star Trek out of all of them, then you are saying it's perfectly alright to have black commanding officers, and it's perfectly alright to have allegories of transgender people, and it's perfectly alright to have kissing, relationships between two people of the same sex. So stop going on about a gay Klingon. And frankly...
Not only that, Garrick and Bashir are 100% gay for each other. Again, they played it that way. That was how it was intended. They were a little coy about it, but do not pretend that that's not what they were going for there. Like, it was pretty obvious.
Both actors have quite clearly, or, both actors have very honestly talked about that. And frankly, I think the way that they have handled Jaden's sexuality is actually, I would argue, a pretty good way of doing it, because they've made his sexuality not his only character trait. He's actually a character beyond the fact that he happens to be gay.
Yep.
Which I like, frankly.
He has shown what his personal motivations are, which are not related to his sexuality. He has relayed some of his interests. Like he likes bird watching and seeing the beauty in the nature around him. He has made it clear that he has chosen to be a pacifist. He has chosen that he does not want to commit violence without reason, but is clearly capable of using violence if necessary, again, as evidenced by episode 7 when he's about to bash 2 people's heads in with a rock because he thinks they kidnapped his friend. So I think he's a very fleshed out, well-written character, and it does really frustrate me that so many people seem to have an issue with him just because he's gay. And again, you can claim like, oh, well, I'm not homophobic, but I'm like, anything after the word but is just a bunch of everything before the word but is a bunch of bullshit. You don't like him because he's gay, and you're homophobic as shit. I'm just gonna say it. I don't care if you disagree with it. That's what it is. And it's really, frankly, disappointing to see the Star Trek community, which has always exemplified itself for being diverse and open-minded. That's what the shows have always been about, to fall down that route of weird right-wing conservative politics. So again, if that's your opinion, you don't like Jaden because he's a little pansy gay boy, like, go fuck yourself. I'm sorry. I don't I don't understand your line of thinking other than you are a homophobe at that point.
But sticking to the positives, I found myself liking Darren, strangely. Even though at the very beginning I thought, oh god, here we go, he's the cock end of the group of cadets, which is how he's presented as initially. Again, turned out to break that mold entirely, and actually he's quite a complex individual with obviously a lot of pressure on him, and that pressure has now relieved somewhat because the marriage didn't happen, but obviously now he's kind of separate from his people because he's not gone ahead with that idea of ruling as their leader and being married. So he's going to have to deal with that now. I was thinking again last night whether this belief I have that he's interested in Jaden romantically is me just seeing something that isn't there and it's just a good bromance. I don't know whether I'm reading more into it than there is, but I definitely think there is the possibility of him having romantic feelings for Jaden as well.
I agree. Again, I think in that 7th episode when he doesn't belittle Kyle, Jaden's romantic partner, but he does kind of subtly brush him aside in a way that feels like he's trying to make way for himself, kind of. And again, depending on how they handle that situation, I might actually enjoy it. I might also hate it. Again, it all depends on how they choose to proceed with that situation. But again, it makes Darren, again, a little more interesting, a little more complex. He's not just some bully caricature. Like, he has a fairly stereotypical backstory of like, oh, his parents are just super, super strict on him. He missed one note on this musical performance he did and they left before he could even finish. And they treat him like shit, so he naturally kind of treats other people like shit. And he just is all about being the best of the best of the best, and he wants to be a captain. But by the end of the season, they do kind of break that mold, where he shows a lot more willingness to let Genesis take center stage as a more command figure, and he supports her in doing that. And he even, by the end of it, has a little hint that, hey, he might be going down the route of a helmsman or a pilot because he shows some promise in that. And again, I like that. I find there to be a bit of uniqueness in his character that I didn't originally see. And I feel like a lot of people never ended up seeing because, again, they watched the first episode or maybe the first 2 episodes and then just wrote the show off altogether. And they were like, nope, I hate it. I'm not going to watch this, which I think is a shame. Which is why I still, to this day, say if you're going to give a show a chance, at least watch its entire first season. See what they're trying to do first. And if you still don't like it by the end of the first season, sure, jump ship. It's clearly not for you. You're not feeling it. You shouldn't have to wait multiple seasons for it to finally work for you. But I think you should give it a chance during its first season to see what they're trying to do. Sam, I think, is another great example of that, where people originally were like, oh, she's so annoying. I can't stand her. She's just hyper and really bubbly and too optimistic to the point of it just being annoying. But it was clear they were going somewhere with that, and they did. Again, by the end of the season, she lives a whole 17 years with the Doctor as her father and ends up becoming a very different kind of person. Like, yes, she still has kind of exuberant personality traits, but she is a much more mature kind of person by the end of the season that I think a lot of people would have liked if they had watched it all.
I'm going to surprise you here. I kind of don't like what they've done with Sam.
Really? Okay.
She's basically Tilly. Clearly autism coded, very bubbly, very socially awkward, very in-your-face, energetic, etc. at the start. I think her and Tilly at the start, very obviously similar characters.
Okay.
Tilly, we see over 5 seasons of Discovery, her growth as a character, as an officer. She still has elements of that exuberance, but it tones down gradually as she becomes more confident in herself, in her abilities, eventually, leading those cadets to safety and everything else. But when it comes to Sam, I kind of feel like...
Oh, I see what you're going to say. That they kind of shortcutted it.
Yes, I feel like the writers of the show realized that people were going to have a problem with Sam because the same people had a problem with Tilly. And they thought, oh, well, maybe we should put an episode in here somewhere where we turn her from how she is at the beginning to someone that's a lot different. And I don't really like that because, one, I feel it's just copycatting Tilly, and I don't think there is anything wrong with having an exuberant, energetic, quirky character as long as it is written right. I also think it makes an interesting character just someone who's exactly the same as somebody else, but also, 17 years from childhood, growing up and becoming an adult. Pretty much all of my major interests that I have now, my interest in paleontology, my interest in history, Titanic, even my interest in Star Trek, were all developed between the ages of 5 and 18. They're very important years, and I feel that skipping over them in a nice, happy montage of her and the Doctor, to have her back at the Academy, seemingly exactly the same, just not as energetic. Like you say, it's just fast-forwarding a process that would actually have some quite significant changes to the character. And maybe they'll go into that in season 2, that there are very significant changes to her character. Maybe she has she has an interest in a different division. She has new interests that she maybe didn't have before. But if that doesn't happen and she's just basically the same character but less energetic and bubbly and quirky, I don't really like that.
I think that's a fair criticism to make. Again, for me, it's not an issue. I think they came up with a rather creative way to have her deal with the trauma of what happened on the Miyazaki and resulted in a very Star Trekian way to deal with that trauma and therefore become a slightly different person than we knew. But there's enough of her still there for me that it doesn't bother me. Because again, I've seen, in some comment sections for the finale episode, that one of the worst moments in that episode for them was when they succeed in arresting Braca and successfully taking down the minefield and everything, that she screams with joy and she goes and gives a big hug to Reno. But for me, that tells me that she is still the same Sam that we knew, just a little different. There's a slight bit of maturity to the character that wasn't there before, but she's still in there. That it is still the same character. And again, for me it works, but I can 100% understand the criticism of, hey, I think we kind of shortcutted this a little bit. Whereas we could have spent the full 4 seasons of this show exploring that development as she gets older. But again, just given the way they wrote the character to begin with, her only being 4 months old technically, I kind of personally like the way they went about this. Like, hey, as a 4-month-year-old individual, you can't deal with this trauma. You cannot succeed in this institution with that level of experience. You need more than that. And she gets it and therefore kind of grows as a person. So again, for me, I think it works. But once again, I totally understand the criticism of it as well. I can 100% respect the other opinion that they kind of speed ran her development.
Genesis is difficult to talk about because I feel like we haven't really gotten much with her. Like, I don't feel like
I agree.
She's had a proper episode to her, so she's difficult to judge. I think she's fine.
Yeah, she's a likable character, and I like her backstory of she's the daughter of an admiral and she wants to not fill his shoes, but follow her own path on the command route. Like, she still wants to be a commander herself, but not in his shadow. I think that's both kind of cliche, but also nuanced enough to work for me. But I do agree, I don't think we've given her like a full episode just to her to really get into that. So we'll see when it comes to Genesis. Again, I like her, but she's, we'll see what they do.
I think out of all of them, I think the weakest character at the moment for me is Terima. Because I feel like so far all she's here for is, here's Caleb's love interest so that we can have the high school romance cliche for the show, or as telepathic person Deus Ex Machina. I feel like we haven't really... Sure. Maybe episode, when she was introduced, I feel like we got a little bit about her and her character, but since then, she has basically become Caleb's love interest and telepathic person for when we need it. She got a bit more again in the trauma episode, but again, that's kind of connected to the whole telepathic stuff in Caleb, so I guess it kind of counts. It would be nice in season 2 to see her have more to do that is not connected to either of those 2 elements, just her as a person.
I agree with that. Again, I like Terima. I don't have an issue with her character, but I do think she is a little bogged down by the fact that she is very, very heavily Caleb's love interest, and almost every single storyline she's had has revolved around him, which I think, again, when it comes to like a strong female character, it's not great to have them revolve entirely around their romantic interest. I'm less picky about the telepathy Deus Ex Machina stuff, because again, I find it kind of interesting that she is just like a once in a generation really strong telepath. I think that's fine for me. I think it's interesting, and I kind of want to see like all the different ways that can be useful in a situation. Again, I can see the criticism of it, of again being like, well, makes things kind of easy for certain situations because she's such a strong telepath and this and that. But again, I have less of an issue with it because I do find it interesting. Again, want to see them explore that a little bit more and not like shy away from it. I would be annoyed if they shied away from it, because again, if you have a character that has proven they are an extremely powerful telepath, why not use it? Like, I'll be annoyed if there are situations where they just conveniently forget that she is able to do these kinds of things. It'll, in my opinion, be kind of poor writing if they do that. So I'm fine with that. But again, I do agree with her constant revolving around Caleb stuff being a little grating, and I would like to see in season 2 her become a little more independent, like see what her specific interests are, like what does she want to do, because she also is an undecided Starfleet cadet. She didn't even want to be in Starfleet. She wanted to be in the War College, and she was kind of forced to be in Starfleet. So which division is she going to go down? What are her personal interests? What does she like? all those kinds of things. I would love to see an episode devoted to that.
Which brings us to Caleb. I am so on the fence about him. I feel like they kind of did a little bit of a Michael Burnham with him by making him very arrogant and very obnoxious and kind of difficult to like at the start, which was a bit irritating. I don't really... maybe they've made some attempts to loosen that a bit, but I still think he is exceedingly arrogant and obnoxious. I mean, sunbathing in the middle of the atrium brings to mind. And I suppose connected to that, he's clearly the show's male, sex appeal, sex object. They've taken plenty of opportunities to have him topless as much as possible and showing him off.
But again, I think that's fair, which they have.
It is what it is, but, just pointing it out. I also think he's just too good at everything he does. He's like the master hacker, the master engineer. He's great with a gun and a weapon, and even by the end of the show, he goes to Bracker and them at the trial, and he makes this big speech, and I feel like we haven't had an instance yet where he comes up against something that he isn't good at. He just seems to be able to do everything. And it's irritating, I guess, because it just makes him feel too good compared to all of the other cadets. You're kind of wondering, why is he even here at the academy if he's clearly so good that he can do the job already? But on the other hand, I get that they have tried to do something with the character, especially in the later half of the season. He has changed. He has grown as a character in some ways. He does now feel like he wants to be at the academy. He does have care for his other cadets, so I can see that they have actually tried with him. Just right now, I'm so on the fence about his character, and season 2 is going to be really important, because if he's exactly the same, just so arrogant, so obnoxious, kind of rude, that's just not gonna go down well for me at the moment. So I'm really on the fence about him.
When it comes to Caleb, I might annoy you a bit with this answer, but I actually kind of really like him. I think, yes, he does start off and pretty consistently stays a very arrogant, obnoxious person. It's even acknowledged in the finale episode with Reno where he says, I'm gonna probably, still be an arrogant asshole to my friends. And she's like, I have no doubt about that. But you finally understand that you belong here, that you have found a place here. To me, it is enough depth and good character development to him that I actually really, really like it. To see him go from a character that is assigned a roommate and immediately calls that fascism to then in the finale saying, hey, Starfleet's not perfect, but it gave me a home and friends and a purpose. I really like that. I ended up really enjoying what they did with his character. I can agree. I think he is a little too good at just about everything, but I think they have done a decent enough job making it clear that it is engineering specifically that he is really good at. Again, he's able to hack into Sam's matrix to get her drunk. He's able to hack into the bridge. He's able to hack out the shuttle to get them out of there. He's able to use programmable matter to restart the Miyazaki. I think if they go down a route where he does not go into the command division and ends up going into operations instead as a main character, I think that would be fucking awesome. I think that really suits his character and would again kind of break the mold of the main character becoming a captain. And you instead have your main character becoming a really well-renowned Starfleet engineer or something. I think that would be very cool for that character to go down. Again, that's me kind of theorizing where they're taking the character. I can't definitively say, they've done the work to do that. At least not yet, but that is what I'm hoping they do with that character, because I think it fits with what we've seen quite well. And he, even though he also annoyed me quite a lot at the start, he did grow on me. And by the end of the first season, I can definitively say I kind of like the guy. I don't love him. He's definitely not my favorite character. And he is an arrogant little asshole. And I don't think that's ever going to change. I think he is always going to be kind of an arrogant douchebag about things, but perhaps in a slightly more lovable way in the future seasons. Kind of similar to, in a way, 7 of 9. Like, she was kind of an arrogant asshole in her show, but in a way that made you like her and think, like, oh, she's kind of a dick, but it's funny, and she is learning how to be more of a person as the show grows. So I think there is potential for that to kind of be the similar route for Caleb. And if that's what they do, great. I love that choice. If they just kind of squander what they've set up here, well, that would suck, but only one way to find out is to keep watching and see what they do.
So I said that this show failed on 2 counts. The first, obviously, being feeling like a school. The second is making me give a damn about this time period. One of the big problems this show was always going to have was they decided to set it in the 32nd century, a time period that Discovery had done a pretty bad job exploring, in lieu of we just want to have constant galactic threatening events every season. So I really wanted Academy to actually, through the fact it was a school and through the fact that they were going to be doing lessons and educating themselves, actually make me care about this time period, get me invested in this time period. And again, I don't really feel like they have.
Which is interesting because I think they did for me.
See, the Beta Z episode is the only one for me where I feel like there was an attempt here to discuss the wider galaxy in this time period. The rest of the show has been either self-contained stories to the Academy that again have not really done a very good job of making me care about this time period, or the big sort of Federation ending threat they put at the end of the season. Again, one of the worst cliches of Discovery's seasons that they decided to do, and I think a show like Starfleet Academy should be very far away from anything like that. But broadly, I just haven't fallen in love with this time period. I'm sat here like, why couldn't this show have been set in the early 2400s after the whole Borg tried to take over every child on Earth? Why couldn't it been set in the Lost era?
Post-Dominion, or the
why
Lost
couldn't it
era?
have been sent post the Dominion War? What is so great about the 32nd century time period? How are you going to use it in a way that actually makes me go, actually, I think that, this place is cool? And it hasn't done it for me. Not yet.
Again, for me, I don't think they've 100% succeeded, but I think they've given me a glimpse as to why I might. Because again, we have the Beta Z episode in episode 2, where you learn that Beta Z has separated from the Federation. They put themselves behind a psionic wall, and this whole episode is about them rejoining the Federation and kind of coming to a mutual agreement to get them to do that. I thought that was actually really good and showed a different side to Betazoids that we hadn't really seen before. Even if none of them have the black eyes, which does piss me off, and yes, I will point that out, because at this point, they just look like humans that have telepathic abilities. I really wish they would have kept the black eyes, just for the sake of canon, but well, whatever. It's not the biggest thing to cry about, but it does bother me. Again, I like that episode a lot. I thought that was interesting. And I also really like the episode with Jaden during the debate episode, where you kind of learn where the Klingons are at in this new world. And how
I suppose that episode did.
Where again, they're in a very bad spot right now. Like, they've lost Kronos. They are kind of in random, disparate tribes at this point, and they're trying to unify, but they don't really know how. And ultimately, they have to conquer the Federation to claim a planet for their own. And again, I think there's a lot of potential to see where the Klingons go from that point after that episode, and I thought that was rather good. That being said, I don't see any other episodes in this season besides those 2 that require this to be in this time period. And I do think that is a bit of a failure on the show's part, where they could have, again, really explored some more of this post-Burn era and everything. Again, I think they've done a lot more work than Discovery ever did, so I will give them credit for that.
Yeah, they definitely get credit for that, because Discovery never really, in my opinion, felt like they tried.
The one thing Discovery did was make the Romulans and Vulcans come together on a single planet, and now they're like a unified race, basically. That was the one thing Discovery did that I found to be interesting and unique and make the 32nd century work. But that was it. So again, we have here 2 examples of why I think it works, but again, only 2. And I think if the show proceeding in its 2nd season, and hopefully 3rd and 4th, I do genuinely want this show to get a full shot to give it its full story. I think they need to explore more things like that to, again, not only explain what kind of century we're in, like what the norm is in this 32nd century, but again, give me a reason why you chose this century, other than the potential Discovery cameos, which they have given us.
Or it's easier to write because we don't have to care so much about the continuity. Which, let's be fair, that's why they moved Discovery to the 32nd century in the first place.
Which, again, I think is fine. Like, again, one of their big criticisms of their first 2 seasons is, hey, you're making this look very different from the era it's supposed to be in. If this is the look you want to go for, then you need to pick a different era. So they quite literally did exactly that. They were like, okay, we're jumping them so far into the future that we can do whatever the fuck we want with the technology, with the aesthetic, this, and that, which is fine. Even if the way they got there was kind of dumb, but you know. So yeah, again, for me, I see a lot of potential with what they have presented in this first season as to why they chose this century. But I agree, I don't think they fully got me there to the point of like, okay, this is why we're doing this. I think they just gave me a little hint at it, which leaves me hopeful that they will continue down that route. But again, that's just me theorizing. I don't know what they're going to end up doing with season 2 and hopefully season 3 and 4. We will just have to wait and see. I'm a little more open to the 32nd century thing than I think you are, but again, they haven't fully convinced me.
Did you have anything specific else you wanted to mention before sort of closing statements about the show?
Oh, 100%. I have a few, actually. One thing I despise on this show,
That's strong wording for you.
9 out of 10 times I absolutely hate it on this show is the music. I do not like the music that they use on this show. They have used this weird record scratch thing to like make it contemporary for the young audience. And there is not a single young audience member who is in their 20s right now who knows what the fuck a record scratch thing is. Like, it is so weird, and it drives me up a wall whenever they do that.
The theme tune is abysmal. I'm sorry, the theme tune is
I don't like it.
boring.
I really don't. It's very boring.
Dull. It's too much like Picard. It's also way too bloody long. The thing goes on forever.
It is really long. And the visuals, again, I feel like they're kind of hearkening back to Enterprise a little bit, like showing the Academy being built kind of the same way in Enterprise. You see the original NX-01 being built and all the steps leading up to that. But it's just boring. I didn't like the intro credits in Enterprise, and I sure don't like them here, so I don't like it. I really don't like it. Most of the copyrighted music that they use in the show, I am not a fan of. I'm just like, it feels weird to put that in Star Trek. I don't know how to explain it any other way than it just feels off. It doesn't
It's like
feel
Faith of
right.
the Heart being used. It feels off. It feels weird.
There is only one time in this whole season that I actually liked a copyrighted bit of music that they used, and that is the beginning of episode 6 when Tarima and Caleb are having sex and having this intimate moment with each other. They use, again, a copyrighted bit of music that sounds very much like Imogen Heap. I don't know if it actually is them, but it sounds like it to me. But it was a very like soft-spoken, intimate kind of song that actually did kind of work for the scene that they were portraying. So that was the one and only moment they have used a bit of music on this show that I kind of liked. Again, there are other moments where they use just traditional score, which I prefer in Star Trek. Again, you can call me old-fashioned or old, whatever, I don't care. I prefer that in Star Trek. I think it works better. But even then, they undercut it a lot of times. Like, a big moment that I can think of is in the finale with Genesis, where she takes the con, and you have this big building orchestral score kind of building up as she takes the seat in the captain's chair, and then they cut out the music, and she does this stupid pee joke, and it's like, come on, man. Like, just let it land. Like, let this show take itself a little seriously, and moments like that really bother me. Again, back to the record scratch thing. There's that is all they use in that third episode that the both of us hate so much. Constantly they're just as the characters are like getting on the lift to take them to another scene or something, and I'm just like, please stop. I hate it. Like, I really, really dislike some of the sound choices that they use on this show. Again, I know that's me being kind of harsh and focusing on the negative right now, but I do not like it. I really hope in season 2 and beyond they kind of lean away from that, because it drives me fucking crazy. I do not like it, and I don't see younger audiences liking it either, because it is so far beyond what young audiences today consider to be modern and contemporary that it just takes me out of it. I really, really don't like that. Aside from that, I will say, aesthetically, I kind of love the show. I love that the environments are very dynamic and very busy. There's a lot of stuff going on in every shot to kind of keep your attention, which again, I think works very well for a younger audience. I like that every scene, even the dramatic scenes in like the finale when the ship is running on low power and everything, I can see what the hell is happening. It's not completely dark like Picard. I hate how in modern television, especially season 3 of Picard, says, oh, this is a dark and gritty story, so naturally you can't see a fucking thing. I hate that. So I love that in Starfleet Academy, every scene is lit beautifully. Like, I can see the characters, I can see what they're doing. There's warm lights, there's cool lights, there's a good dichotomy of warm and cool colors in almost every shot. It's dynamic, it looks good. I really appreciate that. And I do, in fact, take that into account when it comes to how much I like a show. Like, is that a kind of shallow representation of why you might like a show? Yeah, I think the most important thing is the writing, but it's still important. It is a visual media. And if it's not visually appealing to me, there's a problem there. And I do think Starfleet Academy is very visually appealing.
You liked the uniforms as well?
I did. I really like that the teachers have their own specific uniform. They're not the same as we see on Discovery. Like, they're similar, but they have like this little silver and black like sash cross kind of thing going across their chest to juxtapose them from the typical uniform, so you know that they are in fact a Starfleet Academy teacher and not just a regular officer on any old ship. I think it looks good. I like the cadet uniforms. I think they're simple. They're kind of plain, but in a way that makes sense. They are cadets. They have not earned their colors yet. They need to be wearing a pretty gray uniform that again, one day they will earn the right to their stripes, so to speak. But as of right now, they're wearing their nice gray uniforms with just a little splash of color with the little lines on the jackets and pants that they wear. I think it's good. I do think the boots are a little weird. They're just really bulky. They're very tight fit on the legs, but then the actual foot part of the boot is really wide and big, and it's a little odd. It doesn't pull me out of the scene or anything, but it is something I've noticed, and I'm like, might do with streamlining that a little bit. Making that look a little bit nicer.
Since we're talking about the aesthetics, I'm going to say something you might kill you.
Oh no.
Of all of the 32nd century designed starships we've seen, the Athena is the one I think I like the most.
That doesn't kill me because actually, as the show has gone on, I completely agree. I think the Athena looks pretty good, actually.
I think the idea of it landing at the Academy and it transforming like it's a transformer is stupid.
I like it. I still like that.
I still don't like the fact that we have pieces that aren't connected in the warp engines that move around and they're not connected to the ship and they're free floating. I still think that's silly. But generally, if compared to any of the other starship designs we've seen from this time period, I feel like the Athena's design, actually think it's okay. I think it's a reasonably nice design of ship.
Yep. Again, I showed my friend Brian, who has never watched Star Trek ever. This is, as a little experiment, I wanted to introduce him to this show first and just see kind of what he feels about it. This is your introduction point to Star Trek, which I'm sure some people would hang me for, but I was curious. I'm like, I want to see how you feel if this is your introductory point. What do you think about it?
It's a good experiment. I mean, if this is trying to get a new demographic involved or appeal to new people, does it do that?
Yeah, again, he's in his 30s, so he's not quite the demographic of the show, but still, he is completely new to the genre. He's not a super big sci-fi person in general. He doesn't know anything about Star Trek, so I was curious, what is he going to think about this show? And I did kind of smile when the initial moment in the first episode, when they first show the Athena, he goes, "Wow, that's a beautiful ship." And I was like, "Oh, okay."
Interesting.
Again, it's no Voyager, in my opinion. But I do happen to like the Athena. I think it looks better than Discovery by a lot.
A long way.
I think it's a lot better than any of the other ships we see in the big fleet moment at the end of the season. That was an ugly ass looking fleet. Again, I'm happy it's not a copy paste fleet. Looking at you, Picard. It's still ugly. I don't like the ships of the 32nd century. I especially don't like what they did to the Intrepid class. I'm like, how could you take one of the most beautiful ships in all of Star Trek and turn it into that? It makes me mad. So I don't take offense or am all that surprised that you say you like the Athena, actually. I'm like, again, compared to everything else we've gotten in this series and in this century, it actually looks pretty good. I'm pretty okay with it. I kind of like the wings on the nacelles and everything. It looks all right.
Closing remarks, then. The show hasn't won me over, not with its first season. And I think if I was going to give it a rating out of 10 for the whole season, 5, maybe, 5. I'm going to stick with 5. It might be a bit harsh, but for me, the fact that the show really has failed to make it feel like a school, which is kind of the entire premise of the show, really hampers the score for me.
Again,
if you're going to call it Starfleet Academy, you've got to get at least the Academy bit correct from the start, and they just haven't.
Yeah, I think that's fair. For me, overall, out of 10, I would probably give it a 6. I think it's decent. I think it's actually one of the better first seasons of a lot of Star Trek shows, and I think it's better than TNG's first season, which again, some people might hang me for, but I'm like, I'm sorry, that first season of TNG was kind of fucking bad.
I would agree with you there. I think it
DS9's
is
first season was also kind of bad. Voyager's was okay. I would probably still put Voyager's first season over this first season, but only by a little bit. It also didn't really reach its potential.
I think Enterprise has a very strong first season, and I would say
I also agree with that.
stronger than this first season.
I do agree with that as well. Again, some people might absolutely hate us for that opinion, but I do think Enterprise and Voyager and TOS all beat this show out in terms of its first season. But again, compared to DS9, TNG, Picard, Discovery, I think Starfleet Academy does a better job in its first season, which I think is commendable. And even though I'm only giving it a 6 out of 10, I can honestly say this show has won me over. Not entirely, not to the point of me going like, oh, this is like great Star Trek. I absolutely love it. But it has won me over in the fact that I want to see more of it. I want to see more of this show. I want to see where it goes. I'm invested in the characters. So I think it has, in fact, won me over.
I'm certainly willing to give, I might have ranked it only a 5 out of 10, but it's not a 5 out of 10, and I don't want to watch any more. But the second season will be very important for me. You've got to build on this foundation you've made. A shaky foundation, but there is one there. You've got to now, for season 2,
hone it in.
Keep focusing on the characters. Do some more about the wider galaxy. Make it feel a bit more like a school. Show some development, especially in Caleb, in Sam. Give Genesis some more time. And don't repeat this galactic or Federation ending stakes mistake that you did at the end of the season this time round.
Which I will say, I have now seen an article that has been floating around that makes me very nervous. Because there is an article that confirms from the showrunners that season 2 is going to end on a cliffhanger. And that makes me nervous on two fronts. On one front, I'm afraid because to me that sounds like we're again going to do a galaxy-ending threat that we are going to leave for a season 3 to kind of pick up on and resolve. And that makes me very nervous because again, I don't think we need that. That is especially not needed in a show about Starfleet Academy. I don't think it's necessary at all. And 2, it makes me extra nervous because this show may not get a season 3. No. It is very much not confirmed. It is very much in the air right now. So this show might just end on a huge cliffhanger that we never get any resolution to. And I really hope that's not the case. Again, I want this show to get its 4 seasons like it intended and see what it is that they want to make. But if the show does in fact get canceled after its 2 seasons and it ends on a cliffhanger, that's going to leave a really sour note. So I'm nervous. I'm very nervous about the future of this show.
Yeah, so we'll have to see what happens. But let us know. I know this has been a very long video. We've gone into quite some detail here. If you did watch all of season 1, if you stuck with it, what did you make of season 1? What did you make of what we said about it? I'm gonna open the floor. Even if you only watched the first few episodes of Academy and you found it you couldn't watch anymore, feel free to explain why. If
tell me why.
If you have legitimate, good-natured criticisms of the show, like we do, we have plenty, as we've just demonstrated in the last hour and a half or so. Feel free to put them down below, because we want to discuss. We want to have a discussion. That's the whole point of me and Michael being here, doing it in this way. We want to discuss our different views and with you guys in the comments as well. So do let us know. And if you did like listening to us chat about this and you want to hear more of our thoughts on, well, next video will be our thoughts on the Star Trek Voyager Across the Unknown game. Do consider subscribing to get notified of that video when it is out.
And again, just for a little added clarity, again, if you watch the first 2 episodes, the first 3 episodes, first 4 episodes, whatever, and you stopped watching because you're like, I just don't like it, I can't get into it, it's not for me, again, share those opinions, because again, if you watched it and you're like, it's just not made for me, it's clearly meant for younger people, whatever your reasons are, share them with us. Like, there is nothing wrong with not enjoying a show because it's not for you. There is nothing wrong with that. But again, if your reasons for I don't like the show because it's woke liberal propaganda, just take your opinions elsewhere, genuinely.
Those are sort of the comments we just either delete or ignore.
So take that for what you will. Again, let's have a nice, interesting conversation about this first season of Starfleet Academy.
But until next time, it is goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.